At 6:15 on April 9, 1916, Lieutenant Colonel Adrian Carton de Wiart stood in a front-line trench near Vimy Ridge, watching German artillery prepare to obliterate his position. 36 years old, already missing his left eye and left hand, 5 wounds accumulated across 15 years of combat. The German barrage was about to begin. 3,000 shells would fall on his sector in the next 20 minutes. Most officers would have retreated to deep dugouts, waited for the bombardment to pass, prayed the concrete would hold. Carton de Wiart climbed out of the trench and started walking toward the German lines. Not charging, walking, upright, as if inspecting a parade ground on a quiet Tuesday morning. His men watched in disbelief. German 77mm shells were exploding across no man's land every 3 seconds. Shrapnel was tearing through the air at 3,000 feet per second. Machine gun fire from 3 positions was sweeping the open ground in overlapping fields, and their one-eyed, one-handed commanding officer was walking toward the enemy, carrying nothing but a swagger stick and a Webley revolver. A shell exploded 12 feet from him. The blast wave threw him forward. Shrapnel tore through his left hand, what remained of it after previous wounds. 2 fingers were hanging by threads of tissue and skin. Blood poured from the mangled flesh. Carton de Wiart examined the damage for approximately 5 seconds, decided the fingers were unsalvageable, and ripped them off with his right hand. Then he wrapped a field, dressing around the wound, and continued walking. His battalion had no choice but to follow. If their commander could walk through German artillery and pull off his own fingers without breaking stride, they could hardly stay cowering in a trench. The attack succeeded. The German position was overrun in 40 minutes. Carton de Wiart's battalion achieved every objective. He received the Victoria Cross 6 weeks later. The citation mentioned most conspicuous bravery, coolness, and determination during severe operations of a prolonged nature. It didn't mention the fingers. That detail was too disturbing for official records. But every man in the battalion saw it happen. The story spread through the British Expeditionary Force within days. The one-eyed colonel who tore off his own fingers mid-battle became legend. This was not Carton de Wiart's first wound. It was his 6th. It would not be his last. Over the next 29 years, he would collect 3 more wounds, survive 2 plane crashes, escape from prisoner of war camps 5 times, and write in his autobiography that he had enjoyed the war, and frankly, it had been fun. The man was either the bravest soldier who ever lived or completely insane, possibly both. If you want to see how a one-eyed, one-handed general survived 2 world wars, please hit that like button. It helps us share these forgotten stories. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Carton de Wiart. Adrian Carton de Wiart was born on May 5, 1880, in Brussels, Belgium. Wealthy family, respectable background, expected to become a lawyer or diplomat. He had no interest in either profession. At 19, he abandoned his law studies, lied about his nationality, enlisted in the British Army under false pretenses, and shipped to South Africa to fight in the Second Boer War. His family had no idea where he was. They thought he was studying in England. He was actually riding through the Transvaal with a cavalry regiment, getting shot at by Boer commandos who could hit a man at 800 yards. The Boers were excellent marksmen. They used Mauser rifles with smokeless powder and could shoot from concealment without revealing their positions. British cavalry tactics involved charging directly at enemy positions in tight formations. The results were predictable and bloody. Carton de Wiart was shot twice in his first 6 months in South Africa, once in the stomach, once in the groin. Both wounds should have killed him. The stomach wound became infected. He developed peritonitis. His temperature reached 104 degrees. He spent 8 weeks in a field hospital, delirious, barely conscious. He recovered, walked out of the hospital without permission, found his regiment, and reported for duty. His commanding officer should have sent him back to the hospital. Instead, the officer recognized something unusual in this young Belgian who kept volunteering for the most dangerous assignments. Men who wanted to die in combat were common. Men who wanted to fight in combat were rare. The Boer War ended in 1902. Carton de Wiart received a commission as a 2nd lieutenant and was posted to India. No combat operations, no danger, just garrison duty and paperwork. He was bored to the point of requesting transfer to any unit that might see action. In 1914, he got his wish. He was sent to British Somaliland to fight the Dervish state, a Muslim resistance movement that had been battling British colonization for 13 years. The British called their leader the Mad Mullah. His real name was Mohammed Abdullah Hassan, and his fighters were skilled, disciplined, and absolutely committed. Carton de Wiart participated in an assault on a Dervish fortress in October 1914. The British attacked across open ground in daylight. The Dervishes held elevated positions with clear fields of fire. The attack was a disaster from the first minute. At 400 yards, the Dervishes opened fire. British officers fell immediately. The advance stalled. Men took cover behind rocks and in shallow depressions. The attack was collapsing. Carton de Wiart stood up and started walking forward, rallying his men. A Dervish marksman shot him in the face. The bullet struck him on the left side of his head, just behind the eye. It shattered his eye socket, destroyed his left eye completely, and exited through the back of his skull. He collapsed. Blood poured from the wound. His men assumed he was dead. The eye was hanging from the socket by the optic nerve. The pain should have rendered him unconscious. He regained consciousness after 2 minutes, stood up, and continued giving orders. Blood was streaming down his face, soaking his uniform. He couldn't see properly. His balance was compromised. He kept directing the attack, coordinating fire, organizing the withdrawal when the assault failed. His men carried him to a field hospital. The doctors removed the destroyed eye and told him his military career was over. A one-eyed officer could not lead troops in combat. He should accept a staff position or retire with full medical pension. Carton de Wiart used family connections to get posted to the Western Front instead. By May 1915, he was in Belgium commanding infantry in the Ypres salient with one eye and growing reputation for absolute fearlessness. The Western Front was industrial-scale slaughter. Artillery barrages that lasted 3 days, poison gas that melted lungs, machine guns firing 600 rounds per minute, barbed wire entanglements 40 feet deep. The average life expectancy for a junior officer was 6 weeks. Carton de Wiart collected wounds like other men collected stamps. Shot through the ear in 1915 near Ypres, the bullet tore through the cartilage and exited cleanly. He had it bandaged and continued fighting. Shot in the ankle during a trench raid later that year. The bullet shattered bone. He refused evacuation, commanded from a chair when he couldn't stand. Shot in the leg in early 1916 during an assault on German positions. Another shattered bone, another field hospital, another doctor telling him to rest, to accept that his body couldn't take more punishment. He returned to the front as soon as he could walk. His superiors recognized his value. Soldiers would follow an officer who shared every danger, who never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. Carton de Wiart led from the front always. His men knew he would die before he abandoned them. By April 1916, he commanded a battalion in the Gloucestershire Regiment. He was 36 years old, missing his left eye, carrying 4 wounds. Then came Vimy Ridge and the incident with the fingers. The Victoria Cross citation praised his leadership, his courage, his determination. It didn't mention that after tearing off his own fingers, he led his battalion through 3 more German positions that day. It didn't mention that he was back in combat within 2 weeks, the hand still bandaged, still seeping blood. His left hand never fully healed. The remaining fingers were stiff, partially paralyzed. Doctors recommended amputation. Carton de Wiart refused. He kept the damaged hand for another year, trying to maintain function through willpower alone. In 1917, during the Battle of Passchendaele, German artillery hit his position directly. The explosion shattered what remained of his left hand beyond any possibility of saving it. The doctors amputated at the wrist. He was fitted with a primitive prosthetic, a leather cup with metal attachments. He was back in combat within 3 weeks. 1 eye, 1 hand, 6 wounds. The Germans knew about him by then. Intelligence reports circulated through the Wehrmacht, describing the British officer who couldn't be killed. Some German soldiers thought he was propaganda, a myth created to boost British morale. Others who encountered him in battle knew he was real. Carton de Wiart was promoted to brigadier general in 1917. He fought at Passchendaele, one of the bloodiest battles in history, 500,000 casualties on both sides. The battlefield was a swamp of mud, blood, and body parts. Men drowned in shell craters. Wounded soldiers disappeared into the mud and suffocated. Carton de Wiart moved between frontline positions daily, coordinating attacks, directing artillery fire, organizing supply lines. He was shot in the hip in September 1917. The bullet lodged near the bone, too dangerous to remove surgically. He carried it for the rest of his life. He was shot in the leg again in 1918 during the final Allied offensives, his 8th wound. He refused evacuation again. By the time the armistice was signed on November 11, 1918, Carton de Wiart had been wounded 8 times, lost an eye and a hand, earned the Victoria Cross and multiple other decorations. He was 38 years old. Most men would have retired, lived peacefully, enjoyed their survival. Carton de Wiart requested assignment to Poland, where war between Poland and Soviet Russia was about to begin. The Polish-Soviet War was vicious. Both sides committed atrocities. Prisoners were executed. Civilians were massacred. The fighting ranged across hundreds of miles from Warsaw to deep inside Ukraine. Carton de Wiart served as military advisor to the Polish army. Within months, he was commanding Polish units in combat against the Red Army. He led cavalry charges against Soviet positions. He survived ambushes. He was wounded again in 1920, shot in the leg during a skirmish, his 9th wound. The Poles defeated the Soviets at the Battle of Warsaw in August 1920. The Polish government awarded Carton de Wiart the Virtuti Militari, Poland's highest military decoration. He had fought for a foreign country simply because war was what he understood. For the next 18 years, Carton de Wiart served in peacetime administrative roles. He hated every minute. Then September 1939 arrived. Germany invaded Poland. World War II began. Carton de Wiart was 59 years old, missing an eye and a hand, carrying 9 wounds. The British Army gave him command of forces in Norway. When Germany invaded Norway in April 1940, British forces were sent to help Norwegian resistance. The campaign was doomed from the start. German air superiority made British naval operations nearly impossible. German paratroopers captured key airfields before British forces landed. Carton de Wiart commanded British troops around Narvik in northern Norway. His orders were to hold the port and deny Germany access to Swedish iron ore. He had fewer than 5,000 troops, inadequate air support, supply lines stretching across Arctic wilderness. The fighting lasted 6 weeks. British and Norwegian forces attacked German mountain positions repeatedly. The terrain was brutal. Snow, ice, temperatures 20 degrees below zero. Men suffered frostbite as much as combat wounds. Carton de Wiart was 60 years old, fighting in sub-zero temperatures with one eye and one hand. He visited frontline positions daily, directed attacks personally, shared every hardship with his troops. British forces captured Narvik on May 28, 1940, but by then France was collapsing. Paris was about to fall. British forces evacuated from Dunkirk. The troops in Norway were needed elsewhere. The order came to withdraw. Carton de Wiart was among the last to leave, ensuring his men evacuated safely before boarding a ship himself. The campaign had been a failure. Norway was lost, but Carton de Wiart had proven again that age and injury meant nothing to his combat effectiveness. His next mission came in April 1941. Winston Churchill needed someone to lead a military mission to Yugoslavia. The Yugoslav government had just been overthrown after signing a pact with Germany. The new government wanted British support against inevitable German invasion. Carton de Wiart flew from Egypt to Yugoslavia in a converted bomber. The flight crossed the Mediterranean over Italian-held territory, where German and Italian fighters patrolled constantly. On April 5, 1941, the aircraft crashed off the coast of Libya. The plane had mechanical failure, lost altitude over the Mediterranean, ditched in the sea. The crew managed to exit before it sank, but they were 30 miles from shore in enemy-controlled waters. Carton de Wiart and the surviving crew clung to wreckage for 4 hours. The water was cold. Sharks circled. Italian patrol boats searched the area. Eventually, an Italian seaplane spotted them and took them prisoner. The Italians imprisoned Carton de Wiart in Vincigliata Castle in Tuscany, a medieval fortress converted to a POW camp for senior Allied officers. The conditions were relatively comfortable: private rooms, access to books, ability to write censored letters home. Carton de Wiart had no interest in comfort. He wanted to escape. He was 61 years old. The Italians assumed he was no escape risk. Within weeks, he organized an escape committee. They began digging a tunnel from a ground-floor room. The work was slow. They had no proper tools, only spoons and metal scraps. They worked at night. They disposed of excavated dirt in gardens and under floorboards. Carton de Wiart participated in digging despite having one hand. He couldn't shovel efficiently, but he refused to be excluded. The tunnel extended for months, passing under castle walls toward forest beyond. In March 1943, the tunnel was complete. 7 prisoners crawled through to freedom, including Carton de Wiart. They emerged in forest at night and scattered in different directions. Carton de Wiart headed north toward Switzerland, 150 kilometers away. He traveled on foot, avoiding roads, sleeping in forests, stealing food from farms. He was 62 years old, traveling through enemy territory, speaking no Italian. He was recaptured after 8 days. An Italian patrol spotted him near Modena and arrested him. He was returned to Vincigliata and placed in solitary confinement. He attempted to escape 4 more times over the next 18 months. Each attempt failed. Each time he was recaptured and punished. Each time he started planning the next attempt. The Italians grew frustrated. They transferred him to more secure facilities. They increased guards. Nothing worked. In September 1943, Italy surrendered to the Allies. The government signed an armistice and switched sides. German forces immediately occupied northern Italy. The POW camps fell into chaos. Carton de Wiart escaped during the confusion with help from Italian partisans who guided him through German lines toward Allied positions in southern Italy. He reached Allied lines in October 1943. He had been a prisoner for 2.5 years. He had attempted escape 5 times. He was 63 years old. He reported for duty and requested a new assignment. Winston Churchill sent him to China as personal representative to Chiang Kai-shek. It was the least dangerous assignment of his career. No trenches, no artillery, no machine guns. He spent 2 years coordinating British and Chinese operations against Japan, attending diplomatic conferences, navigating Chinese Civil War politics. He hated it. Too much talking, not enough fighting. The war ended in August 1945. Japan surrendered after atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Carton de Wiart was 65 years old. He had fought in 3 wars, been wounded 9 times, lost an eye and a hand, survived 2 plane crashes, escaped from POW camps 5 times. He finally retired in 1947 at age 67. He moved to County Cork, Ireland, where he spent the rest of his life fishing and hunting. His autobiography, Happy Odyssey, was published in 1950. The most controversial passage described his feelings about war. Frankly, I had enjoyed the war. Critics condemned him for glorifying violence. They missed his point. Carton de Wiart didn't enjoy killing. He enjoyed the clarity that war provided. In civilian life, right and wrong were ambiguous. In war, duty was clear. The enemy was obvious. The mission was defined. There was a purity to it that peacetime could never match. Adrian Carton de Wiart died on June 5, 1963, at age 83. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Poland, Belgium? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer, you're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Tell us if you've ever heard of Adrian Carton de Wiart before today. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Adrian Carton de Wiart doesn't disappear into silence. This man deserves to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.